up, we have the amazing Dr. Nicole Berry-Boone. And yes, I took that picture. You are so many things. I know you're laughing, right? And I'll just tell a story as to why I did this. She's a food connoisseur, among all the other important things in her life. So it's so funny that I found a picture of her when we were at her daughter's 16th birthday brunch, which was just so beautiful. And of course, she's holding that menu so close. I'm sorry, I'm joking on you, sis, but I love you dearly. Nicole, Sister Nicole. Well, I'm gonna Dr. Nicole. All right, let me get the title right. Let me get the title right. You are a wife, a mother, daughter of the Most High King, college education administrator slash educator, a food connoisseur, and the glue that brings people together, right? You have faced and been through several storms in life as well, and yet you always rise above higher and stronger than before, even with more degrees. She just graduated last year with her doctorate, everyone. So give her some love, shout her out for that. And she actually did that while her daughter graduated high school. And I can't remember, did Nia graduate with college credits, or did she graduate high school with an associate's degree? I know there was something around college courses, a lot of college courses she was taking in high school.
She didn't graduate with an associate's degree, but she graduated with Korean technical credits so that she could transfer them into college.
Okay, all right. I knew there was something about college that she was doing heavily in high school. So when you began your doctorate, you had just gotten married, found out that you were pregnant. You faced some challenges with your then baby boy. He's growing up so beautifully. And you, like Miss V said, you kept it moving without ignoring what's important, right? And then just before you graduated last year with your doctorate, your mom passed. Can you share a bit about your life story and what keeps you hopeful and motivated even when such challenges arise?
Um, I wrote this stuff down as a reference just in case I get emotional, but I think I'm gonna be okay. So I grew up in a single parent household with two older sisters, and my mother fell a victim of the temptation of drugs that plagued many underserved communities in the 80s, crack cocaine. And I was shy of being a teenager. And so our relationship kind of grew apart. But God empowered my second oldest sister to step in and see me through high school, which was really a struggle for me, but I made it. God consistently showed up and sent a teacher while I was in high school, and I made it to college. While I was in college, I struggled again because of the trauma, and the president of the college showed me favor. I graduated by the skin of my teeth and began working with at-risk youth at the Buffalo Urban League because I felt like I owed that to those kids who walked in a similar path that I had. And through that work, I decided that I really liked college because college kind of saved me. It was a safe space. And I went back to school so that I could pursue a master's degree in higher education. Had to prove myself there, and I made it through. And after leaving college, I came back home and, started working, still estranged from my mother, but had a relationship as best as I could. And I had no children at the time. And then eventually I had a child who you mentioned, Nia, who was premature. So she was like 1 pound and 14 ounces. And I'm frozen, but I don't know if you can hear me, but I see my picture is like not moving. But okay, thank you,
Thank
Ivy.
you. Yeah, sorry.
So I had this premature baby, and she stayed in the hospital for 3 months. I was there every single day. She was discharged after 3 months. She began, what is it, early intervention for the first 3 years of her life. And now she's perfectly fine. Continued on, I started working. Still no real close relationship with my mom because she was still struggling with an addiction. She moved out of state, so I didn't see her anymore. I maintained a relationship with my sisters. And once I had another child who was full term and COVID hit. Like you said, I got accepted to school, which I had been trying to do for so long, but because of the trauma, my academic records didn't reflect the work that I was really capable of doing. And so I called Aisha to help me study some math because I needed to take the GRE and really get into this program. And then I finally got in. At first, they denied me and wanted me to take the test again. And I cried and I cried and I cried. And I was like, I worked so hard. I'm pregnant and I can't take the test again. And this is really like, I didn't know if I was going to be able to have this opportunity again. And so I prayed to God. And after I prayed to God, I said, I'm going to just take the test again. I drove to work the next day with the expectation to give them a call, and they called me. And they said, well, you know what? You don't have to take the test again. We're going to just accept you in the program. And I was like, if that's not God, because that night before I was crying and I was like, I think God just wanted me to say, I believe in you and this is going to work. And once I released that, then I got the call. So I was like, oh my goodness, I was so happy about it. And it was hard. It was very hard because my mother was sick during that time. And so I just kept going, kept going. I never stopped. I never missed a class. My mother was in a different state, but I called, I called, I called, I called. And then in the midst of all of that, what I learned was that um, the further I moved away from my mother, the closer I moved to God. And I feel like for some reason it had to happen that way because when my mother got sick, I was able to show up for her to be the person that she needed. And not because it was what I wanted, but it just happened organically. I could feel it. I knew that she could feel it. And she asked me, she said, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? I want you to plan this. I know that you're strong. And we were able to rekindle our bond. And when she closed her eyes, I had a peace of mind because I knew that I forgave her for what I had to go through growing up. And I knew that she felt that acceptance. And what I think you said something else. You asked me another piece. What was it, Aisha? Hello?
No, it was just pretty much to share about your life story.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was like, maybe I,
Yeah, even
but
challenges arise, and so that's what
yes, so
you're
it
doing.
was just like God kept showing up.
Yeah.
God kept showing up. When I got to school, he kept putting people in my life who had a close relationship to God. And I just happened to be working with them or, fraternizing with them, whatever it was. It was just somebody who had a strong faith. I was saved at, I think, maybe like 21. And so he never stopped showing up. And I was like, there would be no way that I would get through all that I went through without God. There's no way. Absolutely no way. So, yeah, I guess that's my story.
What
I'm still frozen.
But guess what, though? I think it's just a theme tonight. Keep it moving, right? Like
Yes.
the dreams, but you kept it moving, and you see how God allowed the airways to still um, allow your voice through, right? So it's about having a voice, and no matter where you are, whether you're standing still, frozen, or whatever the case is, just speaking up and sharing. So that is amazing. And I love how you said that God kept showing up. God has always been there. And you also mentioned God believes in you. So I hope that, everyone is able to be encouraged to know that if God believes in you, then why should you not believe in yourself and others, right?
Right.
So because we are a community, and that's one thing that I know that you always that you always exude. And so, from the moment that I met you, you have consistently shown that you're one who show up for people. You give your all, perhaps sometimes your last, and you do it out of pure goodness of your heart. And you talked about faith, right?
Mhm.
But if you can just expound a little bit more specifically, like what role does faith, love, and like personal value? So you're because a lot of what you shared talked about how God was with you, right? But in
Mhm.
terms of your personal value, um, how do you use that to foster connection with others? And how do you maintain your own strength while supporting and uplifting others? Because you just do that so well.
Oh, so you don't see me behind closed doors, but so my faith and my love for others, and my family and my values, they help me to foster connections, like my fellowship with my friends, and it helps me to remain strong, right? Cultivating empathy, leaning on those who share the same faith. So, at those in those times when I'm feeling down or I need some upliftment, I lean on those people who I know have a strong faith because I do as well. And I'm just transparent, at that time because I think I have to be vulnerable to allow myself to accept like what is happening, and sometimes it's perspective. Like you see something happening and you're like, why is this happening? But God has given me the opportunity to have perspective, and I'm able to say, well, this happened because I asked for that, and maybe I didn't expect it to happen in this way, but now that it has, now I really see the benefit of it, right? I see the glory of it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, look at God. Like I always say, look at God. And I did not grow up in the church, you know. I didn't grow up knowing the Bible, but I knew that there was a higher being who was watching over me. And I always said, I said, you know what? God is not done with me yet. He has a purpose for me, and I'm still trying to figure out what that is. But when I went to school, I wanted to conduct research on students who came from underserved communities and the social capital that they have, because I felt like the people who have been in my life have been my social capital. They've been the conduits to help me to get to where I am. And so I wanted to give that back, but I needed to see if those people who came from similar backgrounds, those students, experienced some of the same challenges that I had, but also looking at the strengths that they had and how that could help them to move forward in their lives. And I was fortunate enough to get some people on the West Coast to agree to my study, and it was amazing. And so I guess when we get to that point about talking about what we want to do, I believe part of that is my purpose, being able to be a social conduit for others to get to wherever it is, whether it's technical or vocational education, whether it's some other type of role, whatever it is. I want to be that conduit for other people who don't have, or who are those first generation students, right? And I may be going off on a tangent, but my faith and love and my value for others, and the connection that they have, I believe, is all tied to my purpose. And like I said, God isn't done with me, and I would not be where I am or who I am without his support and guidance.
Oh my goodness. So, so much was said there. And I am just so encouraged and full. I love how you talked about your value for others, right? And earlier you talked about reaching out to those within your circle, those people who share similar faith, right?
Mhm.
And I know that we don't live lives where we give to get.
Mhm.
However, when you are a giver, once you approach people, it's easy for them to just respond positively, right? So
Mhm.
there's a reciprocal relationship that we know that we can kind of rely on, right?
Mhm.
And not let it be so one-sided. And if it's one thing that I would just like to encourage everyone, especially as women, and women tend to get a bad name in terms of being competitive and all of these different things. But the more we band together, the more we place value on each other, it just makes it easier for us to grow in community, but also get through those personal storms of life, so to speak. Um, Nicole, how do you create spaces where people feel safe? And I know you talked about the value of others, right? But
Mhm.
the space where they feel safe, seen and supported, and what advice in particular, and I think you touched on that a bit, but what advice would you give to someone else who is trying to build community within their own circle?
So I think transparency, and I know I said that before. I like to be real, right? Open and honest and upfront, empathetic. I also like to be proactive in my interactions. I try to understand others' perspectives and their struggles to try to support and provide any guidance, if and where needed. I know that there is unity, right, in these spaces and in fellowship. And I just think that we're stronger together, right? And if someone who wants to create that space, I think it's being able to meet people where they are. We all come into this circle in a different place, but if we understand where we stand, where we come from, and where we want to go, I think that we begin to create a space that does feel safe and supported. And if it doesn't feel that way, I think we'll know that too, because I think God helps us to discern, where we should be or where we should not.
Oh my goodness, that is so rich. That is so rich right there. And indeed we are stronger together. And a chain is as strong as its weakest link. So, we should always strive to um be the best that we can be within our circles so that everyone feels uplifted. I appreciate you so much, Sister Nicole, Dr. Nicole,
Yeah.
Dr. Nicole, have
Sister Nicole is fine.
but in our personal relationship, but you know me, right? In public, especially where I see a woman with a doctorate, and I want to honor that, regardless of what, and it's not only about degrees, right? Um, whatever your excellence is, right? I want to honor that. So in this public sphere, I will say, Dr. Nicole, thank you so much. I love you dearly. I can't wait to see you again.
Thank you.
You and your beautiful family. And of course,